what's going on, Lance? How are you doing today?
I'm doing super duper. And yourself?
Oh, feeling blessed because I'm talking with an actual bee catcher. My forest here has bees in it because we have a beekeeper and I call it a bee farm. And I love the attitude of those that have that relationship with bees because he'll walk around going, "How's your garden doing? How are your flowers? Looking good, aren't they? You're welcome. You're welcome." He knows the importance of those bees.
And that's important to everybody too. And everyone should know the importance of bees because it's World Bee Day soon. And I'll tell you what, we have to celebrate this because without bees, we wouldn't have much to eat. 82% of the crops that are grown for our food are pollinated by honeybees.
Yep.
That's very important to know.
Now, you have worked with so many different types of bees. One that I would love to learn more about, what is the importance of the carpenter bee?
Carpenter bees dig holes in fascia board and trees, and they actually do pollinate crops, but not as much because they don't store honey like honeybees do. And carpenter bees are usually, about the size of your thumb, and they're black. And the babies are real cute. They're actually golden, pure gold. It looks beautiful. But they're little creatures, and they do help pollinate quite a bit, depending on the size of their community, I should say, not really a colony, because they do tend to grow in the same area together, but they're not really a social insect like the honeybees are.
Yeah. I love the idea that you've teamed up with XTV with the killer bee catcher. And the reason why is because we've got to learn more about these bees. Instead of buying these pesticides to kill them or swat them away, we have to have a relationship with them. And I'm jealous of you that you can get that close.
I get that close because I really love the bees. And if you have that feeling when you're touching the bees and working with the bees of a genuine love towards them, a lot of times they won't be aggressive towards you. Mm-hmm. They can feel that emotion, it seems like. And I give it and they take it. You give it back and forth and it works real well. A lot of people, they're trying to be beekeepers, but they don't have the patience or the understanding that without the love involved, it is very difficult to work with anything, especially honeybees.
Having that love, because here in the South, we have the hornet. And one of the things that when I first moved down here from Montana, I didn't realize hornets live in the ground. So there I was out there in that forest, and boy, I interrupted those hornets in the ground, and I was chased.
Yeah, they look a lot like honeybees. Those are the yellow jackets. Yeah. And they like a bright lemon yellow stripe, and then they have a bright, shiny black stripe too. They don't have a lot of fur on them like the honeybees do. And yeah, they are relentless, and they don't care. The smoke does not inhibit them one bit. They go right after you, and they come out in force and very vigilant at what they do. But that's their job. They're out in the forest.
All the way back to when I was a kid, the National Enquirer talked about these Africanized killer bees, and yet you aren't afraid of them. What gives here, dude?
Well, when you understand the African honeybees were brought over to Brazil in 1956 by Warwick Kerr, who was trying, his modus operandi was to try to unite the European bees with the African bees and make a stronger bee to bring up Brazil's honey production to a higher level, because it wasn't as good as they thought it could be, because the European bees wouldn't fare well in a tropical climate. So by the time we got them up here in 1992, from 1956, they had expanded their territory up to this area, and they are still aggressive, although you got to treat them, again, with love, and be happy that they're there while you're removing them, and use your smoke accordingly. That confuses the pheromone that makes them attack, because they release that when they want to attack you. And also it makes them think there's a fire, so their natural reaction is to gorge themselves with honey, which makes them more lethargic when they're full of honey. They don't like to sting as much as well.
So many beekeepers are so quiet when it comes to the experience. And I don't know if that's just their way of saying, look, don't come mess around with my beehives. But one of the things that you're open and sharing the journey of the bee. For instance, like through you, I learned that bees can get cabin fever.
They can get cabin fever when they're cooped up in the beehive in colder climates. for 2 to 6 months, depending on where you're at. The queen still has to lay eggs, and they keep the queen warm by vibrating their wings and keeping a warmth around her and the egg area where the eggs are developing still. And then by the time spring comes, they're way overcrowded, and that's the queen's signal to actually take half the workers and leave with her,
Yep.
while the other half stay in the original location and make a new queen bee.
Now, is that the reason why you were invited to the tennis match, because that queen bee was on the move?
She was on the move. She actually hung out on top of the spider cam, which they brought over to me, which was really nice. And I vacuumed the bees up, and then went ahead and went down, because they needed me downstairs after I got all the bees vacuumed up, and I took the cage out of its housing and set it out, because I knew that all the other bees in the area would land on the outside of the cage, because I did get the queen. When I grabbed her with my hand, I looked at her, I found her, so I vacuumed her up, put her in there. And then I went down because they wanted me to talk to Mr. Alcaraz and also take some of the bees off of the scoreboard, which I did. I used a pheromone neutralizer spray, which kills the smell, so they wouldn't land back there. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Alcaraz said, I can't focus on the game, he said, because there's bees flying in front of my face. And I said, well, in about 10 minutes, it's going to get down to about 57 degrees. And you're not going to have to worry about that, because bees don't fly that way at 57 degrees. And so you're safe there. And they're going up to the queen bee in the cage that I had placed up there. And you said the magic word. You said focus. Yeah. Stay focused and win. And he did.
Wow. Wow. Here's a personal question, because we learned so much about the bees following the queen bee. If we were to take that queen bee out, could a bee be a leader, or is it always going to be a follower?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I appreciate that. Queen bee lays over 2,000 eggs a day. Yep. They're fertilized eggs. The regular worker bees are not. They're not fertilized eggs, and if they did happen to lay an egg, which they can do, they turn into drone bees.
Yes. Male
bees, and they're basically useless for anything but mating with other queen bees in the area, not their queen. So the hive has to have a queen bee to actually survive, or it's going to diminish in population and eventually starve to death.
Wow. Wow. So important. By the way, I saw that video where you exchanged the cages and into the beehive with the bees. That was the most fascinating thing to see. All you did was just kind of pour them, and they followed each other right into that brand new beehive. You are a fascinating man when you do stuff like that, sir.
I just love the bees. And when it happens like that, it really is helpful that people understand that as well, like you did. And I appreciate that.
You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, even on non-World Bee Days. Come back on a C Day or a K Day, just anything so we can have a conversation about these bees.
I'd love to. Thank you very much for the invite. And please have a happy World Bee Day.
Be brilliant today, okay, sir?
I will. I'll do my best to be brilliant.